Okay. Okay, I guess quick little recap. Fuck all, this happened since last night. Yeah, I mean, basically all I've been doing is herb lore, farming, and then magic because I've been killing chaos druids for more herbs to speed up the farming, speed up the herb lore. Turns out that I may have fucked up a little bit. I've been doing herb lore to get guild of our own, and I hit my goal for the herb lore, which was 42. Turns out guild of our own requires 46, so I was completely off in the first place. So I still need to do another one, and I don't remember where to get Green Man's ales, so I can't boost anything either, which is kind of annoying. Because that would make things a lot easier. But it is what it is. We're almost there again anyway. So probably just tonight, maybe tomorrow night, because I'm not going to do that as much on stream. But probably tonight and maybe tomorrow night. Then I'll have that. I also didn't realize that the feud was one of the prerequisites, or at least partial completion. So apparently I don't know how to read, because I missed a few things for Guild of Our Own. What am I doing? Today. So today, what I want to do is I've lined up a few quests. A lot of it's more just, how do I say, like quality of life. Greenhome Village. I want the spirit trees. Reason being is chocolate dust. What does spirit trees have to do with chocolate dust? Every single time that I've been doing my herb runs, I teleport to Port Sarim. I go to because you're right next with the lodestone, you're right next to the cooking shop. Might as well go there now because I can buy some more by now. Right next to the cooking shop. Cooking shop sells. I'll wait for that bike to go past. The cooking shop sells 10 chocolate chocolate bars, which is nice for my Harrowlander potions, which is what I've been growing mostly for farming. That's what I'm also growing right now. That makes energy potions, and which is quite nice, I think. I don't know if I'm ever going to use them. I'm not familiar enough with this game's energy. The energy seems pretty lenient in this, but yeah, I'll go to Port Sarim, do the chocolate bars, then run up to the Falador farming patch for my herbs. Normally I start at Catherby, then go to Port Sarim, but just because it's like really close to the bank. Then at the end of my farm run, I'll go to Artie. And remember there's a cooking shop in Unil as well. I did not remember that at all, actually. So I guess I can throw that in the rotation if I want to, because I think I have the tally there. That'll be cool. But yeah, what I do is I go to Artie, I do my last thing here, and then I do my little farming crap. I don't know how worth it is. But then I make this journey, and we're going to do it right now because I might as well go buy more. I want to eliminate this journey right here, and that's where the Tree Gnome Village quest comes in, because I can get spirit trees. He sells 10 Chocky bars too. Perfect. That will be good too, because I need... As you can see in the quest log, I want to do Priest in Peril and Ghost Ahoy. The reason for that is to get the Ecto file so that I can use that farming patch as well and incorporate that into the farm runs, which means I will be getting even more Harrowlanders, which means I'll need even more chocolate dust. So more Chocky bars, the better. Fortunately though, the chocolate bars, they actually respawn really quickly. They're not daily ones, they are shop ones that you can just... that respawn fast. So that's good. But yeah, we're going to do that today. We're going to do Tree Gnome Village, Priest in Peril, Ghost Ahoy, and then we'll see if we can do Itchlarins in the feud. Not sure though. They may be... I'm only going to stream, I think, for like 3 hours, maybe 4. We'll see. Then I got to take the dog out. Tomorrow's going to be just mega hot, so I can't take the dog for a walk tomorrow. Like, it's going to be like 43 Celsius or something, which I think is like 100 and... between like 110 and 116 Fahrenheit. Quick math. I don't know. For anyone here that needs freedom units. But yeah, so I can't take her for a walk tomorrow, so it's very important that I take her for the walk today. Whoops. But yeah, I can buy a bunch of these. So I normally do this in my rotation. It works out pretty well, but I would like to use that spirit tree. I haven't figured out exactly which would be the quickest spirit tree to get to do it. I'm guessing maybe the Varrock Grand Exchange one, but we'll figure that out when we get to it. Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head where they all are. So that's fine. It's still going to be quicker than this. Even if I take like Varrock teleports. And does this actually allow you to go to Grand Exchange? Maybe if you've done the diary. I think that's a diary locked thing. I don't remember. Then again, I don't know how the diaries work in this game either, because I think Old School introduced them later. I could be wrong. But anyway, let's get Tree Gnome Village started. Can't imagine I'm going to need any, like, I think I already know this quest. I know I've said that about a few ones, but this one's really straightforward from memory. Even the puzzle I don't think is that big of a deal. Do I go there or do I... Arty... Oh, the Arty one's all the way at the top. Yeah, we're going, you know. Oh, in other news, I think the first VOD, first episode, first VOD, whatever you want to call it, looks like I'm going to be doing weekday VODs, followed by on the weekend, I'll probably do like a 10-minute like update video of just what I've done over the weekend, which I think's mostly important, especially if I find like figure something out new that I think is kind of relevant, or that I find kind of interesting as like an old school player or someone who hasn't, you know, played something in RuneScape specifically. I think that'll be kind of nice. I don't want to leave anything out. Like I think the last recaps I was talking about how I figured out how the food works with the constitution levels and that it scales and all that type of shit. I feel like that's a pretty big discovery, so I feel like it needs to be included. From memory, we go this way, then that way. We go around. Yeah, so it'll be weekly VODs, or daily VODs, sorry. And then on the weekends, I'll do like 10-minute update videos. I'm also thinking maybe doing like a recap review video kind of thing. Not even a recap, but like more like a review video of like things that I think I like and things I think need to be changed, or things that I think could be implemented into old school that'd be really good. Anything like that. Like obviously the biggest criticism I've had so far is agility, like the early training. I think that's very convoluted. Not convoluted, sorry, I was thinking of something else. That's very like lacking. There's just not much there. There is other stuff. There are some things like the menus are a bit convoluted, but I think for those videos I'll actually like, if I do them, I'll construct an actual like thought out opinion and stuff on things rather than just rant. But yeah, that's where I'm at, and I really hope that this is where I was meant to go straight from the start. Actually, this is the first thing I don't remember about this quest. Do I just go straight to King Ballroom? Hello! Well, hello, stranger. My name's Bolwer, and I'm King of the Tree Gnomes. I'm surprised you made it in. Maybe I made the maze too easy. Maybe. I'm afraid I have more serious concerns at the moment. Very serious. I'll leave you to it then. No. So. Can I help at all? I'm glad you asked. The truth is, my people are in grave danger. We have always been protected by the spirit tree. No creature of dark can harm us while there is 3 orbs in place. We are not a violent race, but we fight when we must. Many gnomes have fallen battling the dark forces of Khazad to the north. It is interesting that the Khazad place is here, to the east. And this is to the west, but then the fighting is all just north. And it looks like the gnomes are trying to push towards the north, or I don't know, it's weird. We became desperate, so we took one orb of protection to the battlefield. It was a foolish move. Yeah, no shit. Khazard troops seized the orb. Now we're completely defenseless. How can I help? You would be a huge benefit on the battlefield if you would go there and try to retrieve the orb, my people, and I'll be forever grateful. Do I only have to get one orb in this? Thank you. The battlefield is to the north of the maze. Commander Montai will inform you of the current situation. Do I have to get just one orb, or do they steal the orb when I'm getting this one back? That is if he's still alive. My assistant shall guide you out. Good luck, friend. Cool. Now we can follow him back. I also forgot to bring runes. Hello. Hello, traveler. Are you here to help or just to watch? I've been sent by King Bolrin to retrieve the Orb of Protection. Excellent. We need all the help we can get. I'm Commander Montai. The orb is in the Khazard stronghold to the north, but until we weaken their defenses, we can't get closer. What can I do? Firstly, we need to strengthen our defenses. We desperately need wood to make more battlements. Once the battlements are gone, it's all over. 6 loads of normal logs should do it. I don't remember that. Okay, I'll gather some wood. Please be as quick as you can. Did we do the tracker gnomes? I thought it was just the tracker gnomes. Alright, chop some trees. Oh, there's a tracker gnome still. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I just don't remember this step because I probably just bring the logs with me. This is the most wood cutting I've done so far. 4 wood cutting, huge for the account. Actually, over the weekend I got 95 wood cutting on the old school account. Winning. What's that, 5? I mean, couldn't the gnomes just done this? The trees are right here. Alright, let's go back. Here you go, numbnuts. Here's 6 logs. Hello again. We're still desperate for wood soldier. Oh, desperate for wood soldier. I don't know why I read that weirdly. I have some here. 6 logs. All right. That's excellent. Now we can make more defensive battlements. Give me a moment to organize the troops, then come speak to me. I'll inform you of our next phase of attack. That just went in one ear and out the other. What the fuck did he just say? I should speak to him again and see what to do next. How are you doing? We're hanging in there, soldier. For the next phase, we need to breach their stronghold. So this is where we do the ballista. The ballista can break through the stronghold wall. Hang on, wood cutting. Can break through the stronghold wall. Then we can advance and seize back the orb. Also, might as well just show this, just in case anyone thinks that I'm like looking at the guides or anything. I'm wood cutting and fletching. Don't question me, motherfucker. Ballista can break through the stronghold wall, and then we can advance and seize back the orb, okay? So what's the problem? From this distance, we can't get an accurate enough shot. We need the correct coordinates of the stronghold for a direct hit. I've sent out 3 tracker gnomes to gather them. Have they returned? I'm afraid not, and we're running out of time. I need you to go into the heart of the battlefield, find the trackers, and bring back the coordinates. You think you can do it? I'll try my best. Thank you, you're braver than most. I don't know how long I'll be able to hold out. Once you have the coordinates, come back and fire the ballista right into those monsters. Yes, sir. If you can retrieve the orb and bring safety back to my people, none of the blood spilled on this field will be in vain. Alright, now I need to go get runes because I'm going to need them for the commander later, and I think I also need to kill one of these guys to be able to go to the next spot. Like, I think he actually stops you from going to the next spot. And then we'll go to each of the trackers. So the only thing that I may get stuck on in here is if I can't remember how to do there's one tracker who's crazy. He's lost his mind. And I'm going to have to remember how to solve the code that he gives. From memory, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, it's not a complicated puzzle or anything. But we've been stumped before. Bank. Actually, this quest doesn't need much inventory space, so we're actually just going to grab out a bunch. All of them. Grab teleport rune, why not? You know what? We're going to bring that anyway. And just for the warlord, because I don't know if there's safe spotting or not properly in this, which is also why I want to bring the snare runes. Because the warlord's like level 100 and something. In old school, you can just like trap him in a corner, and like farcast him. Yeah, I don't know how that works, if at all. So we're gonna bring a little bit. What do you think about the Khazad warlord? Is like so over leveled compared to like what you kind of expect from a quest like this. Unless have they changed it at all? Quest overview. You'll need to defeat a level 53 enemy and might need to defeat level 2. Oh, they may have changed it. God, Warlord's like 100 and something in old school. Okay. Prisoner. They caught me spying on the stronghold. They beat me and tortured me. I don't care. But I didn't crack. I told them nothing. They can't break me. I'm sorry. I'm not. Don't be. I have the position of the stronghold. Tells you the Y coordinate. Well done. Now leave before they find you and it's all lost. Okay. Oh, and all is lost. All right. The next one I think is in here, or is that just an orb that's in there? I've forgotten. There's the commander. There's another tracker gnome. Oh wait, no, there's one behind here, right? This is the one, and the one over in the bush. Yeah, there is. And then the one over in the bushes is the crazy one, I believe. Yeah, you're really well hidden from that guy. You know the coordinates of the stronghold. I managed to get one, although it wasn't easy. Tells you the height coordinate. Okay, well done. Could have the other coordinates if they're still alive. Okay. The last coordinate. Oh, no, that's right. You need to get the coordinates to smash this so you can get in there. To get the orb. Where is this fucker? Little midget. There you are. Are you okay? Okay, who's okay? Not me. Hee hee. What's wrong? What the fuck? Is that Oda block? Bro, that's Oda block. You can't see me. No one can. Monsters, demons are all around me. What do you mean? Do you have the coordinate for the Khazad stronghold? Who holds the stronghold? What? My legs and your legs, haha. My legs and your legs, that's 4. Dance with me and Khazad's men are beat. The toll of war has affected his mind. I'll pray for you. All day we pray in the hay, hee hee. Alright, so... my legs and your legs, that's 4. Hello. Hello, warrior. We need the coordinates for a direct hit. Once you have a direct hit, you'll be able to enter the stronghold and retrieve your... oh, so I just send it. I remember these tortoises. Oh, are they lower level? I remember back when I played, like before I quit, and summoning. I remember I killed these for something for summoning. I think for... let's go. You spit flies and screams down directly into, yeah. Effing crash. Let's fucking go. I think maybe it was a beast of burden turtle thing, like a tortoise. But I don't quite remember. I just remember farming them. I think also the terrorbird, maybe. I know the terrorbird is definitely a beast of burden. Hello, Mr. Commander. Goodbye, Mr. Commander. Run, I can't be bothered fighting you. You ain't worth it. Eh, suck my nuts. No! Ah, got it. You live. Alright, now we get back, and I believe they raid the place in the night or something, and you gotta go get the other 2 orbs from the Khazad Warlord. This is another one of those quests that I've done a lot, because this is a very, very popular quest to do on new accounts. Especially on like Pures and PKing accounts. Because you get a bunch of combat XP. Bolrin! It's terrible, isn't it? Oh my, the misery, the horror. King Bolrin, are you okay? Thank you, Traveler, but it's too late, we're all doomed. You guys suck. What happened? They came in the night, I don't know how many, but enough. Who? Khazad troops, they slaughtered anyone who got in their way. Women, children, my wife. Why were they all getting in the way? I'm sorry. They took the other orbs, now we're defenseless. Where did they take them? They headed north of the stronghold. The warlord carries the orbs. I'll find Warlord and bring back the orbs. You are brave, but this task will be tough even for you. I wish you the best of luck. Once again, you are our only hope. I will safeguard this orb and pray for your safe return. My system will guide you out. Safe? Got it. Bitch, your first strategy was to take it onto the battlefield. And then you let them come and take your shit. What is wrong with you? Forgive me if I'm a little skeptical of his words. Oh, there's sandbags. I was like, what is that? Hello, wolves. These are also lower level. These are like usually like level 60s, but this is also very nice to know for summoning, because I know I can level up summoning through the wolves as like level 1. It might even be worth killing them a bit. Okay. I've never actually used one of these spells. Let's have a look. Okay, so you literally just click it and then throw it. But I did notice that these have a way longer, way longer thing. Oh my god. Wall falls to the ground. Yes. Maybe I didn't need those binds. Good fight, I guess. Maybe. Oops. All right. I do also want to do some summoning soon, because I have done summoning before, but because it's a relatively, like, it's not an old school thing, I'd rather do the first bits at least on stream. Just in case there is anything new, I guess. And it feels kind of weird. I don't know. I don't even know what it is. It just feels weird to not do it on stream at first. Even though I have done it. I think I got like, I know at the very least got the bunyip, so that's like 60 something. I don't know how much further after that. I might have gone actually further. I might have gone all the way to the unicorn. I don't remember. Yeah, but like I've said to anyone that hasn't heard me already, I have played this back. Like, I did do some, like, I quit before Divination, like well before Divination, but Dungeoneering was out and Summoning was out back when I quit back in the day. Oh, I have a confession to make, actually. In the light of being transparent and not cheating and not looking at the wiki, I have to admit, I crumbled. I looked at the wiki, I had no choice. It was the old school wiki, to be fair. It wasn't the RuneScape 3. But Jack kept calling it a cadaver berry instead of a cadaver berry. And then he wasn't sure if it was a cadaver or cavada. So I had to look up the name. And it was cadaver. I apologize. I hope you humbly accept. Oh, sorry. I humbly apologize, and I hope you, I guess, very humbly accept my apology. It was a grave and deep mistake. I should never have looked up the name. I hope you can all forgive me. Don't cancel me. But I will understand if you do. Praise the spaghetti monster. What? We go back. Oh my god, I clicked on him and not the gate. We're actually discussing that last night. I can't tell if I like the click boxes in this or I don't. Because on one hand, they are significantly more accurate. Like the actual, like, I don't know what kind of scanning they're doing or whatever, but your mouse actually has to be over the physical model in most cases. Oh, and then I just showed an example where it doesn't. Which is cool. Makes it a lot more accurate, right? Like they don't have like some weird click box around them. However, it also does make some things a lot harder to click on, and it does make me click on trees all the fucking time. So I'm a little torn on it. It's nice at how accurate it is, because it just feels cleaner, but it's also kind of it has problems as well. I guess it's just trade-offs. You made it back. Do you have the orbs? I have them here. Hooray, you're amazing. I didn't think it was possible, but you saved us. Once the orbs are replaced, we'll be safe once more. We must begin the ceremony immediately. What does the ceremony involve? Destroying all defenses that you have so they can come and steal it again with no effort involved whatsoever? Is anyone questioning why all these gnomes, like, particularly all these men, are just like chilling and hanging out, and they said that they slaughtered all the women and children? Where were you lot? Why didn't they slaughter you? The spirit tree has looked over us for centuries. Now we must pay our respects. And you're gonna chant thing, blah, 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 blah. Sutana, Antania, Santana, blah, 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 blah. You Santana guitar. The orbs of protection come to rest gently in the branches of the ancient spirit tree. Now at last, my people are safe once more. We can live in peace again. Yeah, there's still a battlefield to the north. This guy has no clue. I'm pleased I could help. You are the modest, brave traveler. Wait, you are modest, brave traveler. Please, for your efforts, take this amulet. It's made from the same sacred stone as the orbs of protection. It will help keep you safe on your journeys. The tree has many other powers, some of which I cannot reveal. As a friend of the gnome people, I can now allow you to use the tree's magic to teleport to other trees. Thank God. All right. Now, what are my options again? There's no spirit tree plant. Yeah, what? Whoa. Oh, that's Grand Exchange. This is a weird map. Just saying. Why do they just cut? I know Mauritania doesn't have one, but they still just cut it out entirely. I guess this is just where the gnomes are familiar with. Elder Pills tree. This one is annoying. The one we're at's annoying. Like in terms of, so yeah, we'd probably use the Grand Exchange, but let's check the Felder Pills one. Alright. Is this? Oh no, this one's probably the closest one if I use the actual teleport, right? Wait. Teleport. Oh. Yeah. Alright, so this is our teleport for sure to get to whatchamacallit. No, we're also just gonna do a few more because we're. Wait, why am I doing it here still? Oh yeah, that's awesome to know. Alright, so we need to actually let's go to the bank just real quick because we're gonna add this to our presets. For our farm run. So we go presets. Two was my preset. Okay, cool. I didn't have the herbs seeds, so we'll just go with Taramin for now. No, fuck. I don't like this. This, I think, is a terrible interface. Having these two buttons separate, like, these should both be just shown. They're too useful to have as separate things. They need to be on one panel. Like, I think that's one of the worst UI choices they've done. Alrighty. Can I, like, I know Jack said you can resize it. Oh, I see. Okay, so you can, all right, so the resize does it. All right. You're forgiven. I would say that it's still not very intuitive if it gets cut off like that, but that could just be a resolution issue. Although I have got the window at 1920. All right, so we got that. What was Felder Phillips? Water. All right. 1, 1, 1. All right, so we do that. And then we go to the grand tree at the end, right? Next question is, if I'm adding teleports already, do I add another teleport in? Falador is probably, no, Falador will be actually slower than Port Sarim, and it means I'm not going near the thing, the cooking shop. Yeah, I'm not incorporating any of these, cool. Let's save this. Awesome. What are we doing next? Give me the necklace. Where is the necklace? Oh no, did I just slap these into the wrong tab for some reason? Yep, I did. That's a charms tab. Those Menaphos things, like that's the only other thing I've been doing on the weekend is every now and then I'll go and pickpocket stuff. Mostly the wizards and the Menaphos marketeers. The marketeers give the gifts, which give charms, which is really nice, amongst many other things. I even got a rare thing. I got the magic stone, which is an expensive construction item. I don't know if it has any other uses in this game, but yeah, it's a construction item that's quite expensive. Awesome. Put everything back. Wait, I just moved that thing. All right, we're gonna equip this. Actually, let's go. No, not 1. 1 is my empty. 2, we have gear on. Let's add this to it. Where save. We go like this. Grab that. Wear that. Save. Do I have anything for 4? Doesn't matter. Cool. Alright. Delete this now. Alright. Priest in peril. Mikey. Alright, set active. Where do we start? Talk to King Ronald in Baroque Palace. Easy. I know I need rune essence later. I don't remember if I need anything else. I know I need combat for the dog. Maybe a monk, I think, from memory. Well, let's go to King Ronald. Actually, I'm gonna grab a drink. And then we'll go to King Ronald. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I am back. Why is ours on here? I thought I was going to the courtyard then. I'm like, the fuck? King Ronald. What the fuck is that? Dark Quest new. What the fuck is that? Huh? You hear voices from the throne room. Huh? That's a weird way to do it. Greetings, Your Majesty. Well, hello there. Oh, whoops, it's King Rold, not King Ronald. My bad. Well, hello there, what do you want? I am looking for a quest. Request, you say? What an odd request to make of the king? Yeah, I know, right? It's just an odd request to make of anyone. Funny you should mention it, though, as there is something you can do for me. Can you imagine just walking into a random cafe and just going, I am looking for a quest? Or you going to the local police station? I am looking for a quest. Weirdo. Are you aware of the temple east of here? It stands on the River Salve and guards the entrance to the lands of Mauritania. No, I don't think I know it. How strange that you don't. Well, anyway, it has been some days since I last heard from Dressel, the priest who lives there. Be a sport and go make sure that nothing untoward has happened to the silly old codger, would you? Sure, I don't have anything better to do right now. Many thanks, adventurer. I would have sent one of my squires, but they wanted payment for it. Dick. So he's sending me because he expects me not to want payment. Dick. Oh, I gotta go to Aubrey as well. I think I need to. I don't think I bought stuff from him unless I did already. No, I think I did already buy from Aubrey. I did the daily shop run for that. I also went to the Port Sarim one, which those don't seem to respawn. I did try and go back later in the day and it didn't have any more. Like, it seems to like respawn one for some reason. Okay, yeah, this is just a template issue. Alright, that's fine. I also haven't found a way to make it, so... Fuck you, Max. Did I say trade? No, I bet he's just gonna clown me or something. I haven't found a way to make it so it just withdraws the max of an item. Like, of whatever you've got. Like, you should be able to set... Like, in Runelight, you can set whether it whether it needs to have the matching amount or less than or more than a certain amount or whatever. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect either. It doesn't... The way I described it is not as clean as it actually is. But it would be nice to be able to choose between withdrawing the full stack or whatever you've got it set to. What the fuck? Investigate slaughtered monk. Oh, fuck. Why is there a box? Slaughtered monk? Is that part of this quest? Because, I mean, it makes sense, but, like... I mean, it's a nice touch. Don't get me wrong. It's a nice touch. It's just different for me. You knock at the door. You hear a voice from inside. Who are you and what do you want? Council sent me to check your pipes. Insert Pornhub music. Rold sent me to check on Dressel. Who's Rold and Dressel? Isn't Dressel the priest upstairs? Oh wait, Rold's the king of Varrock, right? He is. Hey, you deal with this, alright? He's just coming. Wait a second. Hello, my name is Dressel. Dressel, how can I help? Well, as I said, the king sent me to check you're alright. And, what would you do if I wasn't alright? I'm not sure. I'll ask you what help you need, I suppose. Ah, good. Well, I don't think... Oh, yes. Will you do me a favor, bold adventurer? Yes, of course. Oh, I am a helpful person. I am a helpful dimwit. Really? Thanks, buddy. You see that mausoleum to the north? There's a horrible big dog underneath it that I'd like you to kill for me. It's really been bugging me. Oh, it's really bugging me. Barking all the time and stuff. Please kill it for me, buddy. As you wish, one dead dog coming up. No questions asked. Alrighty, that's sus. Sounds like my character is like jumping at the opportunity. I don't think I need any item to kill this. I think it's just like, from memory, you just need to not deal the last bit of damage. Actually, a dog now. I believe it's like some other looking thing. Interesting. In old school, it looks a little different. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you just need, you can't kill it with like a recoil or something in old school. Or at least the last hit can't be recoil, I think. Knock at the door. You knock at the door, you hear a voice from inside. You again. What do you want? I killed that dog for you. Really? Hey, that's great. Thanks a lot, buddy. What's so funny? Nothing, we're just so grateful to you. One second, I have to blow my nose. Oh, much better. Yeah, maybe you should tell the king what a great job you did, buddy. Alright. I'm glad I brought teleports. I think in one day I went through like 1,600 lore runes or something after stealing them. You ever feel like you blow your nose from one nostril and now the other nostril just feels unbalanced? Like I want to clean the other one now. And by clean, I mean blow my nose and pick it. No, just me? Well, fuck you guys. Talk about Priest in Peril. Well, hello there. What do you want? You have news of Drizzle for me? Yeah, I spoke to the guys at the temple. They said they were bothered by that dog in the crypt, so I went and killed it for him. No problemo. You did what? Uh-oh. Are you mentally deficient? I think my character is, to be fair. I feel like my character's like fucking Rain Man. Like, 1 minute, he's like an absolute moron. The next, he's a genius. Are you mentally deficient? That dog was protecting the holy well of the River Selve. Without the dog, we could be in severe peril of attack. Did I make a mistake? Sips drink. Yes, you did. You need to get there right now and find out what's happening before it is too late for all of us. But Drizzle told me to. No, you absolute cretin. Obviously, some fiend has done something to Drizzle and tricked your feeble intellect into helping them kill that guard dog. You tell him, Roll. You get back there and do whatever is necessary to safeguard my kingdom from attack, or I will see you beheaded for high treason. Yes, your highness. Alright. I think I still need combat stuff, because I think I gotta possibly kill a monk. I think. Yeah, I think you can do a thing where I think you need 50 rune essence, so I think you can do it in one trip. Like bring the right things, but I'm just gonna run though. Worst case scenario, I can grab an energy potion when I teleport back. Because I think you can have 3 items, including like the stuff that you need to do there, because I know we've got to get the key and stuff. And then the rest of your inventory as 25 rune essence, and then you just have to do 1 less trip at the end. But that's a whole other story, and we ain't about that life today. Well, I don't know why that monk is there. I mean, this whole area, a lot of it's new. Like, there's that little limestone area that's there, but otherwise, climb upstairs. Just casually mosey on through. No one seems to mind. We all good. What? I don't remember that. Good for planning tactics and learning math. Alright, search. Food table. Oh, hi Drizzle. Hey, he's got a bed in this one. Is this dick serious? He's... Come to the gate! Interact. Hello. Oh, you do not appear to be one of those Zamarakians who imprisoned me here. Who are you and why are you here? My name is G.I. Genesis. King Rold sent me to find out what was going on at the temple. I take it you are Drizzle? That is right. Oh, praise be to Salomon. Damon, shut up. Saradomin. Saradomin. Lord Sarah. Shut up. All is not yet lost. I fear that when those Zamarakians attacked this place and imprisoned me up here, Misthalin would be doomed. If they should manage to desecrate the Holy River Selv, we would be defenseless against Mauritania. How is a river a good defense then? Well, it's a long tale, and I'm not sure we have time. Tell me anyway. We're here for the law. Tell me anyway. Oh. See, sometimes I predict what the character's gonna say, and sometimes I think, fuck yeah. We're one, we're in sync. But then I also remember that King Rold just called us both mentally deficient. So, tell me anyway. I'd like to know the full facts before acting any further. Saradomin has granted you wisdom, I see. Well, thank you. Well, the story of the River Selv and of how it protects Misthalin is the story of this temple. And of the 7 warrior priests who died here long ago, from whom I am descended. Convenient. Once long ago, Misthalin did not have the borders that it currently does. This entire area, as far west as Varrock itself, was under the control of an evil god. There was frequent skirmishing. Yeah, I think it was under the Zorotians, or Zaros, which I don't even know if it's a thing in this or not. No, it has to be, because that's what part of Desert Treasure. Along the borders, as brave heroes of Varrock fought to keep evil creatures that now are trapped on the eastern side of the River Selv from overrunning. The human encampments who worshipped Saradomin. Then one day, Saradomin himself appeared to one of the mighty heroes whose name has been forgotten by history. And told him we should be able to take that pass. We should be able to take the pass that this temple now stands in. Saradomin would use his power to bless the river and make it impassable to all creatures with evil in their hearts. This unknown hero This unknown hero grouped together all of the mightiest fighters whose hearts were pure that he could find, and 7 of them rode here to make a final stand. The enemies swarmed across the Selv, but they did not yield. For 10 days and nights they fought, never sleeping, never eating, fueled by their desire to make the world a better place for humans to live. On the 11th day, they were to be joined by reinforcements from a neighboring encampment, but when those reinforcements arrived, all they found were bodies of these 7 brave but unknown heroes, surrounded by piles of dead creatures of evil that had tried to defeat them. Is that the Barrows brothers? We were talking about this the other night. I swear there's like a 7th Barrows brother in RuneScape 3. Why the fuck have I got a notification? A friend request. Who are you? Oh, that's someone from music stuff. Yeah, I swear they added like a 7th Barrows brother or something. I don't know if that's this or something else. Would obviously have to check the dialogue from Old School to see if it says 6 there. Surrounded by, blah, blah, we read that. The men were saddened at the loss of such pure and mighty warriors, yet, no, because the Barrows brothers were corrupted first, weren't they, or some shit? I don't know. I'm actually surprised at how much lore I think I know. And I'm probably butchering. Shut up! The men were saddened at the loss of such pure and mighty warriors, yet their sacrifice had not been in vain, for the water of the Selv had indeed been filled with the power of Saradomin. And the evil creatures of Mauritania were trapped beyond the riverbanks forever by their own evil. In memory of this brave sacrifice, my ancestors built this temple so that the land would always be free of evil creatures who wished to destroy it, and laid the bodies of those brave warriors in tombs of honor below this temple, with golden gifts on the tombs as marks of respect. Okay, they're different people. They also built a statue on the river source so that all who might try and cross into Misthalin from Mauritania would know that these lands are protected. He wasn't lying about this being long. By the glory of Saradomin, and that good will always defeat evil no matter how the odds are stacked against them. Okay, I can see how the river protects the border, but I can't see anything of it, how anything could affect that from this temple. Well, as much as it saddens me to say so, adventurer, Lord Saradomin's presence has not been felt on the land for many years now. And even though all true Saradominists have know that he watches over us, his power upon the land is not as strong as it once was. I fear that should the Zamorakians somehow pollute the Selv and desecrate his blessing, his power might not be able to stop the army of evil that lurks to the east, longing for the opportunity to invade and destroy us all. What do you say, adventurer? Will you aid me and all of Misthalin in foiling the Zamorakian plot? No. Imagine if after all that I just say no. Yes, of course. Any threat to Misthalin must be neutralized immediately. So what can I do to help? Well, the immediate problem is that I'm trapped in a cell. Good deductive reasoning. I know that the key to free me is nearby, for none of the Zamorakians who imprisoned me here were ever gone for long periods of time. Should you find that key, however, as you may have noticed, there is a vampire in that coffin over there. Of course, that's the first thing I thought was in the coffin. I do not know how they managed to find it, but it is one of the ones that somehow survived the battle here all those years ago, and is by now quite mad. I would be too, if it's been that long, and I'm stuck in a box. It has been trapped on this side of the river for centuries. Yep, I'd be pissed. And those fiendish Zamorakians pointed out to me that with the light, as a descendant of one of those who trapped it here, it will recognize the smell of my blood should I come anywhere near it. It will, of course, then wake up and kill me, very probably slowly and painfully. Maybe I could kill it somehow while they're still asleep? No, adventurer, I do not think that would be wise for you to wake it at all. As I say, it is little more than a wild animal, and must be extremely powerful to have survived until today. I suspect your best chance would be to incapacitate it somehow. How about some garlic? Interesting, but I feel garlic would be too weak. Perhaps you could use the Selv itself to hold him at bay. Maybe. Got it. Find the key to your cell and do something about the vampire. Got it. When you have done both of those things, I will be able to inspect the damage which these Zamorakians have done to the purity of the Selv. Depending on the severity of the damage, I may require further assistance from you in restoring its purity. Pure is my middle name. Okay, well, the first things first. Let's get you out of here. Yeah, I think I just kill one of the higher level monks. Or one of the hooded monks. Are they high level in this? No, they're the same level. But I think I just killed them. Bonk. Easy. Yeah, that's the key. Alright, but I think from memory it's not the key. This is the key to the dungeon thingy. And we have to swap it. The key is similar size to lock, does not fit. Any luck in finding the key? Yes, I have this key. I took it from the monks. Excellent work. Quickly try on the door. I already did. It did not. I don't know if I need a bucket or not. I hope I don't need a bucket. Please don't need a bucket. I don't want to go all the way back just for a bucket. I mean, if I did, I could get the first inventory of stuff, because I don't think I need combat stuff anymore. Alright, study. One of them has the key, we swap it. Saradomin is the spark that lights the fire in our hearts. Corny. Wait, does it say that on all of them? Is the key that unlocks, okay. Alright, you, we do that. Give me the proper key. Polluted water. God damn it, I'm gonna need a bucket, aren't I? Alright, we're gonna talk to Drizzle first. Maybe he has a bucket that he shits in or something. I doubt it. Actually, where are all the toilets in this game? Where does everyone... Huh? That's sus. You unlocked the cell door. Oh, thank you. You have found the key. The key fitted the lock. You're now free to leave. Well, excellent work, Adventure. Unfortunately, as you know, I cannot risk waking the vampire in the coffin. Do you have any ideas? Well, the water of the cell should still have enough power to work against vampire, despite what the Zamarakians might have done to it. Maybe you should try and get hold of somewhere. Alright, we're gonna teleport back. How many inventory slots? How many inventory slots? Okay. We're gonna grab an air staff. So we take an air staff, a lore rune, and a fire rune. 25 essence and a bucket. I think we can do it. Because then I still have the teleports back to Varrock if I have an air staff. Wield. Alright, why is shift not working? I swear shift works on some things to do an alternate, like as a modifier key, but then other things it just doesn't. It's stupid. Alright, bucket. Take the one bucket that I own, and then we're going to take pure essence will do. So it's one of the... I think to mine pure essence, you need 30 mining. Like, I think that was an anti-botting thing back in the day. And you had to be a member. But I just pickpocketed all of this. Stats. Yeah, well, look, I'm curious. Mining. 30. Pure essence, yeah. I do find it interesting when they have, like, these legacy, like, anti-botting things. Because that was very much for anti-botting. Because back in the day, there was only one type of essence. There was no rune and pure essence. It was just rune essence, I believe. And it was botted to the living shithouse of just people mining essence. Because essence actually used to be something before it was, like, on every fucking drop table. Thank you, Zolra. And... yeah, they implemented it so you had to, because it was also accessible in free-to-play, that made it even more bottable, right? So they made it so you had to be a member and 30 mining to be able to get it. But it's still in the game to this day, which is interesting. I said that before. Oh, fuck. I'm an idiot. Sorry, my character's not an idiot. I'm the idiot. My bad. Also, where is the music all gone? I feel like this would be a good place for music. Settings, audio. Yeah, the music's not muted. Yeah, it's not my headphones that are down low. What the hell is going on? Different tracks, just like way different volumes. Bucket. I was about to say, I swear if I need a well as I need a rope to dip it into the well, I was going to be so sad. Finally, I think he blesses the water. We throw it on the coffin. Then we go downstairs and he needs the rune essence. Well, I have some water in the cell, but it seems it could be desecrated though. You can bless it for me. Yes, good thinking, adventurer. Give it to me. I will bless it. Bucket of blessed water, let's go. Interact. Sucks to be your vampire. I poured the blessed water out of over the vampire's coffin. I think that should trap him in there long enough for you to escape. Excellent. He's just gonna walk past all of the fucking monks of Zamorak. I am free at last. Let me ensure that the evil vampire is trapped for good. I will beat you down in the monument. Look for me down there. I need to assess what damage has been done to our holy barrier. Okay. I'm still curious who this monk is. A hooded monk. Well, can't say my character isn't observant. Oh, is he here? Drizzle. Oh, what? That's a ghoul. I don't remember that. Finally made it down. Things are worse than I fear. I'm not sure if I'll be able to repair the damage. Why? What's happened? From what I can tell, after you killed the guard dog who protected the entrance to those monuments, whoops, my bad. Those Zamorakians forced the door into the main chamber, and have used some kind of evil potion upon the well, which leads to the source of the river Cell. Leads to the source of the river Cell. As they have done this at the very source of the river, it will spread along the entire river, disrupting and the blessing placed upon it, and allowing evil creatures of Mauritania to invade at their leisure. What can we do to prevent that? Well, I've placed a holy barrier on the entrance that leads to Mauritania, but it is not very powerful. It requires me to remain here, focusing upon it to keep it intact. The creatures on the other side have already sensed a weakness, and a ghoul crept in while I was setting the barrier. Be careful. If you go near it, they are vicious creatures. I have temporarily detained it in the next room to this one. What we need to do is find some kind of way of removing and counteracting the evil magic that has been put into the river source at the well, so that the river will flow pure again. If I have to get the combat shit again instead, I'm gonna cry. Couldn't you bless the river to purify it, like what you did with the water I took from the well? No, that would not work. The power I have from Saradomin is not great enough to cleanse an entire river of this foul Zamorakian pollutant. I have only one idea how we could possibly cleanse the river. Mages have an ore called rune, oh thank god, that absorbs the magic and allows them to create runes. Should we collect enough of this rune essence, it is possible it will soak up the river, the evil potion that has been poured into the river, and purify it. Oh my god, my throat's getting dry. Kind of like a filter. Okay, I guess it's worth a try. How many should I get? Well, I have no knowledge of these ores, other than speculation and gossip. But if the things I hear are true, around 50 should be sufficient for the task. The things that he hears are true. Yeah, there you go. That should do it. I'll bless these stones and place them in the well. Please take this deck. Wait, I only gave you 25. Been handed down. It has the power to prevent werewolves from adopting their wolf form in combat as long as you have it equipped. They didn't even give you 50. Drizzle, you can't count. 5 kudos. Let's go. Huge. Alright. Now we go through. Hello, Mr. Ghoul. Oh, you are aggro. Bye, Mr. Ghoul. Are you serious? Oh, I can use fire spells. Cool. Oh, no, I'm using an air star. I can't use the air spells. Easy. Proceed regardless. Not that dangerous. Imagine if they boosted all the levels of everything. What? Pick and mix. those pickup sticks, but pick and mix is better. All right, we got a bank here. Also got a new Slayer Master over there. Ooh, I need to get the lodestone. Lodestone, top priority. All right, let's do that. That's got all my gear. Deposit everything. All right, we can delete that. Now, do we do Ghost Ahoy or... Yeah, we do Ghost Ahoy. I don't even know if Itchlerans is even worth it. Like, there's so many ways to get such what the fuck is this? I remember this. I don't remember how we interact with it or what we do with it, but I remember its existence. But what the fuck is this? There's a quest there. How far is the run? The run is barely further. Wait, is it? It's about the same because you got to go around the farm. Huh. Do we put off Ghost Ahoy for now? But then what do I do instead? I don't need the... Where is Ghost Ahoy? I'm pretty sure it's Ghost Ahoy that gives the active file. Oh, wait, no, I probably need to do, whatchamacallit for it. I've got it filtered out. I probably need to do, Restless Ghost, because I need the Necklace of Ghost Speak, right? Might be... Alright, never mind. Then I guess it'll be Nature Spirit... Man, I don't even see it here. Interesting. Wait, if I click on Nature Spirit, I'll be able to find the other thing. Nature Spirit, the Restless Ghost. Let's go do this because this is really quick. Yeah, a little bit of combat. Well, I could probably kick the ghost in its shins till it dies, but we'll do this anyway. Oh, free out of combat stuff, right? Yep. Alright. Teleport to Lumbridge. Yeah, I didn't say Ghost Ahoy anywhere. Jack said something about the Acto Functus being different, but I don't remember if he said whether he had to do Ghost Ahoy or not. Welcome to the Church of Holy Sardamin. Blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for a quest. That's lucky. I need someone to do a quest for me. Right to the point. I like it. Thank you. The problem is there's a ghost in the graveyard just to the south of this church. I would like to get rid of it. You need help from my friend, Father Ernie. He is a prick. I think he's the grumpy old fart, who is a bit of a ghost expert. Currently living in the little shack in the south of Lumbridge Swamps near the coast. Father Eric, by the way, pleased to meet you. Likewise. Take care traveling through the swamp to get there, yep. Cool. Whoa, that's interesting. That's a big area that it thinks is, I gotta find a hut. They must think we're... I know it's like probably one of the first quests people run into, but goddamn. Alright, Grumpy. Hopefully he doesn't remember me stealing from him. I suppose I'd better talk to you then. What has he got himself into this time? A ghost is haunting his graveyard. Oh, the silly fool. I leave town for 5 months and he's already having problems. Hi. Well, I can't go back down to exercise it. I vowed not to leave this place until I've spent a full 2 years praying and meditating. I'll tell you what I can do, though. Take this amulet. Thank you. It is a ghost speak amulet. It's called that because when you wear it, you can speak to ghosts. Many ghosts are doomed to remain in this world because they have important tasks left uncompleted. if you know what this task is, you can get rid of the ghost. I'm not making any guarantees, mind you, but it's the best I can do right now. Thank you. I'll give it a try. From memory, we have to get his head, which used to be in the Wizard's Tower, but the Wizard's Tower has changed. And for a very beginner quest, it seems like the Wizard's Tower is a little farther than necessary. Oh, maybe it's this instead now. Instead of the catacombs. Oh, it's probably in the catacombs. Duh. Hello, Ghost. How are you? Not very good, actually. Yeah, understandable. What's the problem? Did you just understand what I said? Yep. Now tell me what the problem is. This is incredible. I didn't expect anyone to ever understand me. Okay, I understand. Can you imagine you get the necklace and they don't speak your native language? Like they speak, like, I don't know, Spanish instead of English? And you just can't communicate? Like you're able to... That'd be the ultimate cuck. Cuck through death. But have you any idea why you're doomed to be a ghost? Well, to be honest, I'm not sure. I should think it's pure because I lost my head. That'd help. What? I can see your head perfectly fine. Well, see through it at least. Oh, that's a hat. I was wondering what this stuff is. The hat is just... He's wearing the sorting hat from Harry Potter. No. I mean from my real body. If you look in my coffin, you'll see my corpse is without a skull. Last thing I remember was being attacked by a warlock while I was mining. It was at the mine just south of this graveyard here. Okay, I'll try to get your skull back for you so you can rest in peace. So that's not where we gotta go. Interesting. What the fuck's the catacombs then? In old school, that's where death is. Or one of the places death is. Surely it's this. Take the skull from the pile of rocks. Hey, dick. Yeah, I wish I could teabag you. Is there emotes? Where's the emotes? Surely there's emotes. There's cosmetics in this fucking game. There has to be emotes. Emotes. Yeah, get fucked, buddy. Get fucked. Cool. I'm a mature adult. Shut up. Maybe I should. Alright, smart ass. Whoa, cutscene. No. What? Loading map. Release! Thank you, stranger! They loaded in time map for that. That seemed completely unnecessary. Alright, that's another quest down. 5 ancient bones that give 200 XP each. Okay. Yeah, I like that better. I like that it, like, when it gives an item that you can use to redeem instead of just getting lamps more. Like, it feels more, immersive. Okay, can we do Ghost Ahoy now? And do I want to do that or do I want to do the feud? Because I do need to do the feud. Ghost Ahoy. It wasn't in the murky list, so let's have a look down the bottom. I don't understand the second ordering it's got them in. Is it like release date? Arrow of the Last Mountain. Ghost Ahoy. Oh, it's right next to the feud. Cool, let's do the feud. Set active. Level 54. Oh, this would be a good test to see if we can do Itchlerins. We don't even have to actually complete the feud, I don't think. Put that up there. Or move that down. Fuck you, go soy. Alright. Wait. I start this as Shanty Pass, right? Talk to, oh no, Ali Morrison. This way. This quest, I remember some parts. I don't remember like all of it. I remember the Ukathanki dung and the kebab. And I know it has to do with blackjacking. Because I think like that's part of the reason you also have to do this quest for this one. Oh, actually, before that, let's do a herb run. It's about that time. We can incorporate our new patch. Let's fucking go. Also, I've been very disappointed by the master farmers. I don't feel like they're giving me as much as they should. Like even if you factor in, like I know Old School made the scaling level, like the drops you get based on your farming level. Even factoring that in, I just feel like I'm not getting many, like even guams. I've got plenty of taramins, but I've gotten them from other ways as well. Let's do that. Let's save that. You know, I got the 4. Is there anything else? Also, I realized the Marin tool can use the bear fur. I did not occur to me originally. Only one more level and I can use the irrits, so that'll be big. That's another thing that I can use. But let's start off with Catherby. Big stretch. I did grab the lodestone, right? Oh my god. Thank god. Alright. Talk to numbnuts here, and now I need to get 4 super composts out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, then we'll go to... I guess we'll go Canifus next. I don't have anything else that I want to get from there. Or do anything else there. I think. I wonder if that annoying as fuck vampire is there. Or like can spawn there where it's like the ones that teleport on top of you. There's one that's really annoying at the Canifus farm. Or the one near the Ecto farm. Wait, he's not called the town crier? He's called a herald now. Maybe he's a herald of doom. Oh, was Ghost the one that has like the crab and stuff, or the lobster? Break this patch. Hello, nice to meet you. What? Oh, shut up. Leave me alone. Oh, I just used the stupid compost on it. I wasted super compost. People who don't play RuneScape are confused why I'm an idiot. People who play RuneScape are laughing at why I'm an idiot. Alright, that's that. Go to Artie. Wait, no, I should do Artie last. Nah, that's fine. Well, I like this sheep hugger. Alright. This is one of the worst ones for Oh, I'm out of food. In the trough. Oops. Why they're all losing health. The animals. Got the produce. Add you. I really almost just don't care about doing this. It's not that fun, to be honest. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm just doing rabbits at the moment and like they breed too quickly or whatever. But I'm just not finding this that fun. The concept is really cool, and it might be better if I actually paid more attention to it. But I don't know. Right now it's feeling more like a chore than actually fun. Which I know is a little ironic considering I'm doing this right now, but shut up. So yeah, I come here, we go here. We go here. Trade him. Buy some chocolate bars. And then we go up to Catherby. Yep, Catherby. Fuck's sake. We go up to the farming patch above Port Sarim. And now I can also teleport to South Feldep Hills, take the Spirit Tree, go to the Gnome Stronghold, and buy some more chocolate. Easy. Gigabrain. Gaming. Unfortunately, I'm doing Terramin still. Terramin feel like the daily one, because it's like, I can still buy supplies from the tutor, which has like a whole bunch of supplies that work for Terramin, so I don't mind it. I get at least like 25 per day plus, depending on how much I actually go there, to restock. I can get more. Alright, so let's go. Teleport. Oh, it takes me back to the thing straight away rather than... That's a little unnecessary, I think. Unless I just did it wrong. Let's just try it real quick here. If I go teleport, does it give me the menu or is it just... You must have completed... Oh, thank God, I only needed to do that to get here. Whew. Thank God I let you come here still. I can't bother doing the Grand Tree right now. Oh, I forgot to put my buckets away. Itsy. Alright, now we come over here. Talk to Hudo. We buy some of these. Buy some of these. Come over here, and we dump them. I could grind them, but it's a little boring on stream. I'll do that later. Let me go back, buy the last of it, and then we continue on with our day. And I can do this every farm run. You can see, like, it's already respawned one. I need to remember to also buy the pineapples. It is just free super compost, really. Cool. Now let's go back to Alcarid. And we'll do the feud. Depending on how long this takes, maybe we'll do Itchlerans. Or maybe we think of a quest that might give us Herblore XP. What am I doing? Ali Morrison. Should be up here. What the? What the hell is this shit? Tools for games. Ring of Seeking. Magic Stove. What? Huh? What? Huh? Oh, there's Ollie Martin. Okay. I wonder if he still has his like actual store after this. Hello to you too. My name is Ali Morrison, the greatest salesman in the world. If you are, then why are you selling goods from a stall? That's a good question. Well, one can only do and sell so much. If I had more staff, I'd be able to sell more. Rather than wasting my time on menial things, I could get on with selling sand to the Bedabin and useless tourist trinkets to everyone. I'd like to help you, but... Yes, I know, the life of a shopkeeper isn't slaying dragons and wooing damsels, but it has its charms. Although you can help me in another way. A nephew of mine lives not too far from here, in a little town called Polvinich. Polvinich. It's Polvinich now, alright? Fuck yous. If you could fetch him here, I'll give you the first month of his salary. Hell yeah, we get to rip off another dude. But you had better become the biggest merchant in Gillinor once I succeed. Many thanks, my friend. My nephew's name is Ali, and he lives in the south. And he lives to the south in a town called Polvinich. Like in English. Tell him his uncle Ali M needs his help up in Alcaret. Okay. Now have a look at my wares. Your wares suck. You know what? I assume I'm going to need these. Otherwise, there's no reason for him to sell them, right? And I know they're used in a quest. I don't remember buying that. Despite your best efforts, he still sells you some junk. Jesus. Does this have combat? Yes. Okay. So we're gonna grab air runes for combat. Put that down there. Grab those. I feel like this shit's gonna come in handy. I'm just gonna put that here just in case he gave it to me for a reason, unless he actually did just sell it to me because he's the world's greatest salesman. Those there. Do I just need nature runes for the... I just need nature runes. Alright, that's sick. I think with that I won't need any food. Surely. Wait, desert shit. Oh, that's druid's robes, not desert. Whoopsie! Water skin 4. Water skin 4. Alright. Cool. Gonna wear this shit until we need it for combat. Oh, I still have a decent amount of health after that, actually. Wait, what's my health normally now? Oh, I have more health than I thought I did. Alright, we don't need the mage gear. I'll dump that. Where's the chest? I feel like... Does Shanty sell anything that might be useful? Other stuff? That I would want to bank. Feather pack. I'll buy them anyway. I'll buy some ropes. Dump them. Dump all them. Okay. Go through. Proceed regardless. Alright. Travel. Really? They couldn't add icons for that, but they did it for the other ones? I feel like that'd look nice with some icons. Kind of like a desert town icon, an oasis icon, like camp thing with like, whatchamacallit, like tents. I reckon that'd look good. Alright, we have to find, what's his face? Let's lock this, or turn them off. Where is this quest? The feud. I should travel there and find out his nephew's whereabouts. All right. And I've got to do some stuff over here, but I don't remember if his nephew's over there. That's where these numbnut people are, the Menopause douches. Is he in here? No. Is he in a prison somewhere? No. Open curtain. I don't remember this quest as well. I probably need the snake charmer, I think. Like, this is the type of one where I'll remember like tiny bits and pieces. I don't think you can get in here, can you? No. I can't find anything. Maybe the street urchins. It's usually the street urchins in video games, yeah, that give information. What would you want to know? No one knows what's going on in the streets better than me. I live, sleep, eat, and drink here. Sorry to hear that, kiddo. The fact that I'm so small means that people tend to ignore me, which helps even more. Yes. Yes, tell me about Marlon Morrison's nephew. It was okay, although he used to kick us when he caught any of us stealing from his stall. Fair. You know where he is now? He disappeared around a week ago. He was involved in some dodgy business with both the gangs. I think he scammed them. Whether he got away with it or they got him, I don't know. But I reckon if you gained either of the gang's trust, they may let you in on some more info. Well, do you need any more information than that? Yes. Tell me the Menophites. They're a bad bunch, always starting fights down in the Aspen Snake. Word on the street is that they're led by some deranged priest. Though nobody gets to see him as he deals through Rashid, the operator. Okay. They're planning something, but they're such a close-knit group that little ever spills out. All right. I'm getting hungry. Tell me about the bandits. They're not much really to. There's not much really to say about them. They're just a group of local thugs led by the largest amongst them. They don't harbor the ambitions of the Menophites. Well, do you need any other information then? Hang on, I'm gonna grab an ice cream. That'll hold me over for a bit. Okay, I got 2 ice creams instead. Alright, the mayor. The mayor is a spineless coward. The current state of the town is his fault. He didn't stand up to the Menophites when they first came to town. When he finally realized the mistake, he hired a group of... he realized his mistake, he hired a group of thugs to try to get rid of them. Am I a dick for eating a Magnum ice cream while talking to a street urchin that lives on the streets of a desert? He'd probably kill for an ice cream. When they discovered him to be weak, they turned against him too, thus causing even larger mess. You need any other information? Yes, tell me about the town. Not much really to say about it. Polvanich is a small town located between Alcarid and Menopause and has a particularly bad crime problem. Besides that, not much. Okay. Did I even pay the kid? What? He just gave me the information for free. Always pet the cat. Always pet the dog. Alright. What did we learn from that? There's someone called the Operator. For those guys who said to become friends with the gangs. Alright, there's the operator. Well, we'll just talk to him. And then we'll check out the thug side or the bandit side. Hello, good sir. What do you want? I'm just new in town and I have a few questions. What do you want to know? Tell me about yourself. My information. That information is available on a need-to-know basis right now. You don't need to know. Can I help you with anything else? Tell me about other people around town. Keep ready for the slow. Huh? Hang on, I shouldn't be saying. Listen, I don't want to talk about them. You sus, buddy. Oh, okay, he's got a scimitar, so we can recognize him that way. I'm looking for Ali. You'll have to be a little more specific if you want help finding him. Well, he has an uncle called Ali Morrisane, a market vendor in El Kharid. And that's all I really know about him. Say no more, I too am looking for him. The little tyke robbed me too. If we work together, perhaps we can catch him and teach him a lesson. Can I help you with anything else? Well, then can we work together? Okay then. So I robbed them. Let's see if we can talk to a bandit or something. Mark, so do you need any revisions? Why do they all sell fake beards? Bandit. Hello. What do you want? Want to get to know locals? How about if you have business discussion with us, okay? You're different. Hello. What do you want? Well, nothing really. I'm new to town. I want to get to know. Dick. Monkey. I didn't know they put Ben in the game. Alright. You also have a different name. Comfortable. Thank you. Can I help you with anything? I take about the clothes you're wearing. This is... Yep. How observant of you. My character is observant. Alright, blue, red. Okay, they literally do what the other dye traders do. Or like Aggie or whatever it is in Greenall. Villager. I know we have to do something with this to like feed the Ukathanki thing. Like one of the hot kebab things. I'm in the kebab construction industry. I offer two different types of kebabs. The standard run-of-the-mill kebab seen throughout Gillinor and enjoyed by many intoxicated dwarves. Don't call me a dwarf. And my specialty, the extra hot kebab. No, I know I need one of the hot kebabs for later. What do I need? A sauce. not going to put it in Jalal the drunk. Drinks now, are you? That's what happened last time I gave someone the sauce. Hang on, I'm opening an ice cream. Now I've got a drumstick. My diet's going great, by the way. You're not going to put... Yeah. That would be a bit cliche. I can come up with something more original. Potent enough to give the camel over the runs. That's what we want to do later. Is there anything else I can help you with? Huh? Can I actually get one? Oh, you can. Cool. Anything else I can do for you? No. What does it do? Heals question marks. Okay, that's like kebabs in... The old game, it used to even damage you. I don't know if it does in this still or not. I wish they kept that in old school. Kebabs could damage you. Alright. Go to the pub, because the pub is always where you find information in these games. Ah, kind stranger. Get this old man a drink so that he may wet his throat and tell you of strange things happening in this town. Sold. More than one Ali from Pelvanage. Or uncle. What can you tell me about his uncle? He has a stall in the bazaar in Al Kharid. Does that help? No. How do you know if anyone here might know who I'm looking for? Difficult question to answer. It doesn't seem like you really know who you're looking for. But you should ask around town. Alright, just give me a drink. Did you say anything specific? How do you know that? Oh, you're not here sightseeing, that's for certain. Anyway, it's not really important how I know what I know. What's important is that I know all about the person you're looking for. He doesn't seem very drunk. You do? How do you know I'm looking for Ali Morassein's nephew? Because you just told him. He didn't even say that yet. I'll tell you more, but my throat is drying up, my lips are dry. This desert climate is an inhospitable one. Get me another beer so I can continue. Imagine doing this at the pub. Someone's looking for a missing family member. And you're like, buy me a beer and we can talk. The ice cream's leaking on me. Help. It took too long. Oh, it's sticky everywhere. Wait, what? You are too kind. Now, what are we talking about? Ali Morassein's nephew. I've known him since he was a wee lad. A right little mischievous beggar. That's all fine. That's all fine and well, but do you have any more useful information about him, such as his whereabouts? This must be really annoying for the video, with me eating. Well, now if you had just asked me about that in the first place, I would have told you directly. I'm sorry I was a little sharp with you, but do you know where he is? I'll tell you more. You're fucking with me, aren't you? Is this enough beer? Dick? Deep existential reasoning or justification was never my strong suit, so what can I do for you? All I want to know is the whereabouts of Ali Morassein's nephew. Now, is that his nephew from his side or his wife's? They have a huge family, you see. I remember... You're not going to fool me into buying you another beer. First, give me some useful information. That's right, how can I possibly continue? Well, if you can't continue, I'll just have to wring you like a wet cloth and squeeze out enough booze to fill another tankard. I reckon it would hurt though. Alright. That was the last bite, I promise. Wait, no, I already lied. Alright, I finished my ice cream. I see, don't worry about me. I'll just have to soldier on. Now, what do you want to know? For the last time, where is Ali Morrissane's nephew? I don't know exactly. He disappeared last week. I think the cat just attacked the dog. Either those bandits. Phoebe, come here. Yeah. What are you doing, shithead? Were you trying to get into the bin, or were you happy? You seem pretty happy, so I'm guessing you tried to get in the bin, you little shit. You little shit. You're a little shit. Yeah, you're very happy with yourself, aren't you? I don't know exactly, just bid last week. Either those bandits or Menophites have something to do with it. Perhaps their feuding has something to do with it. Perhaps if you were to solve that problem. Anyway, is there a chance for another beer? What do you think? Why does nobody like me? What the fuck? You know, I have this friend and I can't remember. What was I saying? Yo, what the fuck? Gagex? Thank you, my friend. Now, if you don't mind, I'm having a conversation with my imaginary friend, Bob. I've got the lovely country coconuts. Diddly-dee. There they are, standing in a row. Oh, it's just looping now. Yeah, well, I've got this extra beer anyway. Wait, was that a different thing? Did you hear the one? Oh, I guess it might just be random. What are you looking at? Wow, rude. Wait, take beer. Did I just buy those beers for nothing? Oh, I'm not going to rob a stranger's beer. I don't want them to get germs. Wait. Can I also put it in there and see what happens? Alright, he said I need to solve the... He didn't really tell me shit, did he? Maybe I should talk... I did. Alright, I guess we'll talk to them again. Where's Scimitar Boy? Wait, he disappeared. Hello, Scimitar Boy. Hello! What do you want? I'm trying to figure out the feud that exists between you and the bandits. Not much to figure out. The problem is those thieving... In what way? They are always stealing, starting fights, and causing disruption to the life of the people in this town. Word has it the Menophites are also involved in unsavory behavior. Admittedly, we are far better than them at that sort of thing, but they did start the cycle. How did they start it? I can't remember, as it's been going on for so long now. Go on, try. I think our leader once mentioned that they robbed one of our... Wait, they robbed one of our camels, a heinous crime around here, worthy of stoning. So if they offered a camel as a gesture of goodwill, would the Menophites cease hostilities? Those bandits would never agree to that. They're such bad thieves, they couldn't afford to buy even the mangiest excuse of a camel. Never mind the desert-traversing, four-legged beauty that we would demand. That's weird. But if they did, well, I suppose so. That's the end of the conversation. Alright, well... Jansen? Wait, what? Jassem and Jassem. Why is there two of them? They name the same thing. Okay. What do they say again? Maybe I should talk to the two gangs. Okay. I really wish I was paying better attention. Try the Cowardly Bandit again, because he has a different name. Where'd he go? Friggin'. Anything in here? No, there's nothing on the mini-map. Where'd he go? Cowardly Bandit. Oh! What do you want? I'm trying to figure out the feud that exists between you and the Menophites. What's it to you? Nothing much. I'm trying to understand why thieves of your repute would stoop to the level of the Menophites. Well, if memory serves me correctly, I think my granddad mentioned that they robbed one of our camels, a heinous crime. If they offered a camel as a gesture of goodwill, would you and the rest of the bandits cease your hostilities? Knights would never do that. They have no sense of honor. But if they did, well, I suppose so. Maybe if I got both gangs a camel, I would use the mutual goodwill to find out what happened to Ali's nephew. I have no other leads. Alright, I guess I go into the camel place and sell them both a Jessim. I'm not going to pet that. I might get fleas or something else nasty. You little... Not easy. This goofy face. Alright. The Camel Man. I think we found our man. Can I help you with anything? Discount camels. A great idea. Selling camels at discounted prices so the common man can experience the joys of owning a camel too. They're not just a source of kebab meat, you know. That's what's in the kebabs. Really, I think I was a camel in a previous existence. You're teasing me now, you rogue. Everyone has a laugh at my expense. I'm just more enlightened than you. Holy shit, that sounds like everybody at the moment. Well, yes, actually, I'd like to ask about something else. Okay, I'm looking for Ali. Well, you're in the right place. Oh, great, so you know him? Oh, no, I just meant that Polvenich isn't that big. I'm sure somebody in town will help. Yeah, I'm sure. Dicks. Around his neck? Oh, it's just a cape. And a beard. And long hair. Okay, are those camels around the side for sale? Around the side already sold. But you're in luck. I have another 2 beautiful camels arriving in soon from the best stable in all of Al Kharid. Camels, beautiful. I worry about you. That is a... Yeah, actually. that's actually kind of weird. Can you tell me a little about them? Well, Sandy, the female camel, is a placid beast and is 20 years of age and comes from a prestigious family whose mother was part of the Sultan's baggage train. Lumps, on the other hand, is a 15-year-old male, a bit surly and prone to bouts of stubbornness. However, he more than makes up for this failing with his immense strength and stamina. Both of them are Camulus horribilis family, a particular breed only to this area of Gillinor. Speaking of beautiful. What you doing, puppy? Nail looks terrifying. Sorry. Patting the dog. Okay, that's enough. So they're camels then. Is there anything else I can help you with? Well, can I buy them? Why did it change topic then? What price do you want for both of them? Can I put a price on life? They are precious beyond the worth of price value. What the fuck? 1,000 gold? I would have sold for half of that. Gives you a receipt for camels in return. Here are the receipts for camels, so you can pick them up as soon as I get them in. Is there anything else I can help you with? Which one's this? Oh. Well, how do I know which one's which? We go for the best. To give you a camel in order to restore peace. I knew they were cowards. Tell them that we have changed our minds and demand 10 camels in return for hate it here. I hate it. I hate quests. Also, I'm still yet to understand why he's the cowardly bandit. Agreed to give you a camel in order to restore peace. Really? I knew they were Your name is Cowardly Bandit. Tell them that we have changed our mind and demand 10 camels in return. This approach doesn't seem to be working. Perhaps I should be more direct. Join one of the gangs? Yeah, let's join these guys, because they're right here, and I'm lazy. Good day, adventurer. Have you come with the Menophyte's peace offering? Actually, no. Actually, I came to ask about something else. We can talk once you bring back... What level are these guys? I'm about to go on a slaughtering...
I will try and join the Menophytes then. No problem whatsoever.
Calm blue ocean, calm blue ocean. Give me a man of action. We could do with more people. Oh, more promising. We could do with more people like you to sort those despicable bandits out. Yeah, those pesky bandits. So will you join us in our fight to wipe them out? How serendipitous. I would love to wipe them out right now. I'd love to wipe you out as well. Yes, of course. Those pesky bandits should be taught a lesson. Good choice, my friend. Together we will crush them. So where do we start? Slow down, slow down. No, I don't want to slow down. First, you must prove yourself capable and trustworthy. Come on, Bobby. How will I manage that? Don't worry about that. I'll just set you a few jobs to do. As you might have gathered, we have the reputation for being less than scrupulous. Something with good foundation. So I want you to foster this reputation and grow it. What exactly does that mean? It means that I want you to go out into town and pickpocket 3 villages and then report back to me. If you have any problems, don't be afraid to ask for some advice. Thievery, now we're talking. Can I help you with anything else? That's fine. Here we go. Steal from everyone. I mean, the targets. Hey, buddy. What are you doing? Yoink. You want to get my purse? I already got it. Wait, lure. Here, I want to show you something. What is it? It's a surprise. Follow me. Oh, that's sus. Very sus. I know your tricks. You won't come in. What? So you're willing to follow me? Oh, hang on. I probably need to do the this is probably where blackjacking comes into it. You said to ask for advice. I pickpocketed 1 person. Only wait. Okay, no, it is actually counting. Pocket. Why did the first one work? In the middle of town. Alright, let's try maybe over here, because it's a different area, I guess. Pickpocket. No. Oh my god, and I can't even attack them if I get annoyed. Only 2 more to do. Briggin. Wait, can I just pickpocket the brigand? Will that count? Ow. I didn't see if I actually succeeded or not. Let me steal from you, buddy. Does that count? No, fuck. It has to be the villagers. Alright, let's try in here again. He said to ask for help. So I'm thinking either the street urchins or someone at the Menopause side. I mean, the Menopause and the bandits both hold the thingies. What are they called? The, oh my god. That's 76 big. And the street urchins, because they're just information. Oh, yeah. You distract them with the street urchin. Oh, yeah. Hey, you camel. Wait, where's the pocket? Oh, that one. How did the first one just work then? Wait, it didn't work. What? Okay, I'm confused. Did that little shit just take my 10 coins and not do anything for me? Come here, you little... Kid, come here. What do you want? I need a little help. I want to make some money. Maybe I was just too slow. You see that villager over there? Well, if you could distract him for a bit, I'll give you 10 coins. Is that it? Crazy. I can distract anyone. Who is it? Who is it? He didn't do it. Oh, I hate this town. I hate this place. I hate this place. I'm gonna go talk to someone else then. No, don't. Oh, no. Sorry, I got something stuck in my throat then. I could do with a bit of advice. Try adding another element to the equation like distract. I tried that, didn't I? Useless. Right, street urchin. You see the murderous rage in my eyes? Please, make this work. Wait a sec. Alright, yes, you. Alright, pickpocket. It worked! Oh my... The rage is subsiding. Feels good. Where's my money? Here you go, thanks. No, I need you to do it again. Hey there. I just did. Work here again. It's more. Oh my god. I hate quests. Having problems. Can you give me more advice? Distraction tactic isn't working anymore. No. Alright, give me a blackjack. It is a small town. Perhaps using a spot of cunning and a bit of brute force might work better. I'm liking the sound. Yes! I'm gonna beat a motherfucker. Alrighty. Lure. Come here, I want to show you something. Nothing sus. Oh, is she coming? Oh, I didn't finish. I think I need to finish the dialogue. Wait, where'd she go? Lure. The surprise! Follow me! Yeah, man. Just, yeah, I think someone will see me. Bonk! Yoink! 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 Now report my success. Got it. The dog is just staring at me. First trial. You hardly think that a couple of pickpocketings would... You're a dick. Now, the next thing you have to do is spot a burglary. The only place worth pilfering is the mayor's villa. I want you to retrieve the mayor's wife's jewels. Got any advice? Think that here we go. I think a disguise would be a good start. After that, I would definitely stake out the place to make sure the mayor is not in. You'll need a key to get into the front door. Oh, you just happen to have the keys. Okay, I need to give this to someone so they can... Oh, no, I don't. I thought I had to give it to someone. Disguise. The door is locked. That is what the key is for. Take the place out. The mayor's family may be in. Take the place out. Isn't the mayor like out here somewhere? Yeah, there he is. What do you mean I need to stake the place out? I was just searching for a fucking doorbell in medieval desert. Makes sense. How do I stake the place out? Urchins? Urchins? Help? Talk to the mayor. Don't chat for very long. I'm very busy. Muggings and burglaries. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Oh. I'm glad I'm robbing you. Great addition. How do I stoke this out? Hey there. Some more people. Need information? Yeah? Mayor? This coward, when he finally realized it was a mistake to hire the thugs, when he discovered it too weak. Okay, that was useless. The windows, nothing. Is it an agility thing? Ooh. Oh, no, that's the... I don't see anything connected that could be the agility, unless that tree is something. Does this require agility for the quest? No. It can't be that. Try out. Before I enter the house, I must stake the place out to ensure there is no one. I must also disguise myself and wear gloves. Okay, I need gloves. I mean, I'm wearing gloves, but let's see if I can get gloves. Where would I get gloves? You don't sell gloves. Even if I get gloves, how do I... Oh, what was that? No, the open safe. Let's go upstairs and see if there's... Wait, how do I even get upstairs? How do I get upstairs? No, because it doesn't require agility, so it can't be that. Okay, but... Open... Oops, not that. Door. Wait, is the awning on the inside or the outside? A little stumped. And some town, not really much. Yeah, no, you're not doing shit for me. How do I stake it out? Oh, Hide behind cactus. Bruh. This is clear, there's nobody. Really? Oh my god. Search nothing. Wait, find a note. Contained within 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Is this just that like 1 plus 1 equals 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5 sequence thing? Easy. That's just common as fuck. Search bed. Another note. Oh, what? Fibonacci scroll on it. Is that the Fibonacci sequence? I thought the Fibonacci sequence was just prime numbers. Wait, where's the... Oh, cupboard. Oh, nothing. Okay. The golden cave. They let the creature free. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Be gentle. Ooh, I don't see anything else up here. Aren't these just regular, like, thieving safes? Yeah, these are just regular thieving safes. Where is the place to steal the things, then? It's a painting. No. Okay, back upstairs. Anything outside? No, that tree doesn't do anything. Touch the bed again? Nothing. Ooh, basket. Nope. Surely there's something in the bathroom. Why have a bathroom here like this? Okay, they're just going through each other. Mirror, bath, pipe. Examine. Bathroom table. Okay, burgle the house. I'm trying. Believe me, I'm trying. And nothing other than mattress. I must be missing something somewhere. Close the curtain. What was that? Oh! On the wall hangs a rather nondescript picture. On close inspection, there is a safe. Wait, is it 1? Wait, is it actually just the numbers and not the 1, 1, 2, 3? Sounds as if you've gotten the... Oh. I guess the first one counted. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. What was it? 3, 5, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it was that. Okay. Remove the drills from the safe. Easy. Casually walk out the front door, as you do. Is that the Fibonacci sequence? Oh, the Fibonacci sequence was just all prime numbers, like in a row. I don't know. I've completed your task. Impressive. I didn't expect you to succeed so soon with cracking that safe. Did you have help? Of course not, although the mayor did leave a number of hints lying around. There's a fool. Now give me the jewels. I'm sorry, I have to look this up. I need to know. Fibonacci sequence. Oh, okay, that is a Fibonacci sequence. It is a series of numbers where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones. Okay. The more you know. I wonder what the one is then that's just all the prime numbers in a row. Now, your final task is one of utmost importance. It has come to my attention that there is a trader in the midst. Oh, really? Yes, and I want you to root them out. Why me? Because I feel like I can trust you. You don't have all the baggage that comes with being a villain your entire life. So they know they're villains. Well, then get to it. I'm guessing I've got blackjack someone, but I don't know when the camel thing comes into it. You fill the trough with whatchamacallit. Hello, friend. Lure. What is it? The surprise. Follow me. Bonk. Pickpocket. Ow. Knock him out. Knock him out. Knock him out. Pickpocket. Run. Alright, so it's not him. Could it be the dude that's like the only one we haven't talked to? Is he even part of them? I'm currently doing some research. Could you talk to me later? Okay, nope. Okay. Identifying the trader. Maybe I'll just talk to some. I was wondering if you can help me. Tell me what your problem is, and I'll let you know if I can. The possibility of a betrayal in the metafights. Do you know anything about this? It wasn't me, honestly, I swear. Really? So you know anything about this? Well, the traitor that... Well, there is traitorous Hisham. Who is he then? Probably the most untrustworthy, backstabbing fiend ever walked Tumakin's fair desert. He'd sell his mother to slavers if he hadn't already betrayed her and had her locked up for the last job he put. What the fuck? I suppose the name is a bit of a giveaway. That was too simple. Are you sure it was him? Positive. He was turned by the offer of a set of waterproofs and a ride on a camel. Well, what can I say? He doesn't have the name for being loyal. How do I find him? I've discovered I should know. That can't be it. No, I never would have expected that traitorous Hisham would betray us. Actually, what am I saying? Of course it would have been him. He betrayed his family for a sandpit and an umbrella. I'm sure he sold us out for much more. Actually, he sold you out for... Stop. I don't want to know. It hurts too much already. Find him and then kill him, but do it quietly. I don't want to fuss. Can I help you with anything else? No, but where do I find him? Yeah. No, this room I think is the room that people use for blackjacking a lot. Oh, I wonder if that's for Desert Treasure or something instead. How do I find him? No, not Lua. Talk to. Hi. Praise, you have seen the error of your ways, may Elidness. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I can ask you about something. Need to ask him. Okay, but where is he? Maybe the pub. Identify the dog. Identify the dog. Urchins! Urchins! I need your help again. Where are you? I need information. You! Information. Give. Hello. No! I want information. Yes, tell me about Traitorous Hassan. Fuck. Bobby? What are you doing? Attention. Screaming at the moment. Hey, Bobby. Men of hot dogs, men of hot dogs. Alright, let's talk through him, I guess. Where'd he go? You're in there. I'm still working on it. Well, don't wait. You don't. Well, tell me where he is. Talk to you. No, you're doing the same shit. Just talk to all of them? I don't know. God damn it. Maybe we try and knock one out. See if that does anything. Is there anything upstairs? No. I'm gonna just knock him out. Alright, no. Is there one in here still? Oh, don't tell me I let him out. Oh, it was so free. But well. It's a surprise. In. Oh, you stupid. Bonk. Pickpocket. Nope, that didn't give me shit. Alright, I'm locking you in there though. Did we talk to him before? Sorry, but I'm doing research. Really doesn't give you much. I must find a way to kill him in a stealthy fashion. Well, I don't know where he is first. It'd be funny if he was just over in the other area where with all the bandits and stuff. How do I find him? Ow. What are you doing, Bubby? Absol. Couldn't be the cowardly bandit, right? I feel like that's too, like, silly. Good day. I'm just complimenting your, I wouldn't waste my breath. Okay. Unless you went to one of the other camps or whatever, bandit camp. Maybe I missed a piece of dialogue with this guy. Let's see if he actually says anything. Where is he? Is the deed done? I'm still working on it. Well, don't waste time talking to me. Get on it. I don't know where he is. No, you're out here. You look sus. Alright, no. 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 Be useful, you prick. I have to find... Yeah, the stealthy part's the easy part. Where is it? Talk to you. You're the one that's in the pub. You seem like an odd one out. No. God fucking damn it. I feel like I must have missed a piece of dialogue or something, and now it's not telling me anymore. Talk. No. 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 I'm kind of stumped. Maybe I try a different... I don't recall there being a Menophyte person in either of those. I don't have any other idea, though. Unless I'm just, like, blind as shit. Talk to a villager, maybe? Very well, thank you. Oh, great chat! Great chat. Talk to the snake charmer. Means that you'll leave me alone. I would give you snake charming super starter kit, complete with a complete basket. What does this do? Oh, hell no. Ow. W, close the shop. Yeah, low. No. Little cutie. I'm both off it. Alright. I don't think... Talk to the barman. Did I already talk to the barman? Can I help you with anything? Oh. Oh! I'm looking for Trader Hisham. He is here, actually. He was here. He just nipped out to go to the toilet a few minutes ago. His drink is over there. There's no one has ever actually seen a toilet. Yeah! I literally said that earlier! Alright, I guess I put the sauce into it. Wait, take beer. Not gonna rub a stranger's beer. Use the sauce. Maybe it is this quest. You know, it's really childish. So, no, I'm not gonna. Bro, really? What else do I need to? Just gotta find a way to kill him stealthily. Alright, let me try the thing that I know you can do with the hot sauce. You put it in the trough. Maybe I do something with the dung. In the trough. Okay. Yeah, it's not gonna be done. Maybe I can put that in his drink. Pick up dung. You need to hold a bucket. Fuck. Alright, general store. Quick. Where are you? Let me right click you. Where are you? Yeah. Okay, bucket. I put this in there? I don't recall this. No. Alright. Beyond that. I put this in his drink? Nothing interesting happens. I'm not gonna do that. Please tell me I don't have to remember, like, I'll not remember, but I can figure this out. Okay, that literally did nothing. I want their germs. Oh, fun. Alright, snake basket. This U is used to hold snakes. Well, is there a snake in it? There was a snake in this. There's snakes over there. Maybe I use this. Kill a snake. Nothing interesting happening. How do I? So there's. Talk about no, blah blah. Hello there. Is there anything else that I missed? I'm looking for traders. He just nipped out to go to the toilet a few minutes ago. His drink is over there on the table by the barrels. The other problem is no one is seeing, so it may take a while. Is there anything else I can help you with? Can I do something with the barrels? I don't understand why I can't do that. Take beer. Can I swap it with a different beer? Yes, I'd like a drink, please. This is the same color. Nothing interesting happened. Nothing interesting happens. Fuck. Talk to people around it. No. Quarry point in the money pot. Yes. There we go, can we go? What the fuck is... No, not listen to her. Talk to her. Okay, so he doesn't tell me how to do it, though. I find it interesting that it specifically says take beer. Has upon it a beer, which I will not take for moral reasons. Why can't I put the red sauce in it? Do I have to talk to someone else, maybe? Hey there. No, I don't need to rob people. I need information. Then it's the man. No. Maybe he sells something extra, or maybe I triggered something. Depends on what. Depends on you want tabs or not. Why is that? Gotcha. Yeah, we've been through all this. Need some information? God damn it. Alright, maybe try talking back with the people again. Where is he? There. I'm still working on it. God damn it. Wait, what if I use the snake on it? Like some venom or something, nothing interesting happens. Makes a hissing sound. What? Oh, okay. I don't know what to do with it. Just do random shit. Why can't I pick this one? What if I drop the basket? I don't understand. I'll use this on it. Poison the grub, buddy. Go get your own. Okay, okay. Is insufficient. Skills are insufficient. Oh my god. Alright, let me get that back on. My snake charming skills insufficient. How do I get sufficient then? What about you? What are you currently doing research? Okay then. Bill says that. These notes are from the house, right? They didn't. Yeah, Fibonacci. No. For coin. For money in. You have orange snake charming flute. Yes, I have orange. But how do I use it? Alright, let's go over here and maybe just play some random shit and see what happens. Doing everything in sequence bucket. Oh, I can click this. Alright, fuck you, snakes. I feel like little Nicky. Get in the flash! Alright, you're dead now. You should have been friendly. What's a dickwad here? Is the day done? No. Oh. Alright, let's put that back on at least. Oh no, because I tried that original. Ooh. Was it just the beard? Or was it just random chance? I'm so confused. I have no idea what I did. Okay, now it has to do something with the beer, right? Full basket? No. No. Wait, is he Ollie? I mean, not Ollie. Is he the guy? Hi. I wonder if I can ask you about something. God. Yeah, man. wait. No. Let's talk to this guy. All right, throw money in. I have a snake. Can I have a go? Can I have a go? Oh, I see you've lost. Here you go. Now leave me alone, you rude. Ooh, what about on the barrel? They mentioned the barrel. No. Fuck. Alright, let's just play some random shit. Oh my god, this interface is so mid. It's so unresponsive. Hello? Well, that did absolutely fucking nothing. Alright, let's try talking to him again, see if he says anything different. No one of those in a toilet in a while. Alright, there was another guy over here. Maybe we try him. There's gotta be some reason for upstairs. Closed curtain, barrels. God, give him a beer. Maybe he'll tell me something. He just drank the beer. No. I mean, it did say he left. Maybe we try and go somewhere? Oh my god, what am I doing? Fuck it. I don't know what to do with the snake. So, let's try. We're already at South Albany. What? Try to bet. Let's just try the camps. No man. Nomad gone. Yeah, nothing in there. No, don't attack people, please. Oh, there's a shop. No. Oh, let's talk to him anyway, see if he... Nope. Alright, let's try the bandit camp. Oh, it's a bandit camp. Oh my god, this is still a training method? Holy shit. Bandit. Yeah, so back in the day, if you wear a god item of any kind, these guys will permanently stay aggro on you. I can't believe people still do it. Alright, trade bartender, we don't... Okay. Walk to him. Walk to. Get out, no one... You're not welcome here, alright, dicks. Bandit. Ooh. This guy had a name. Oh, bandit shopkeeper. Oh. No. Elvis is the other quest, right? The desert treasure. Oh, I'm so confused. What do I know? What do I know? Guess we go back to Alvanage, or maybe we try. No, I don't think. Why would it be Nada though? I don't think that makes sense. South Alvanage. I also don't know the use of the dung. If it even is this quest that uses the dung. Where's the mayor? Can't really chat. Urchins. I'm pretty sure I've tried you for this part. Yeah, no. No. Dicks. No. You seem further away. No. Why can't I do anything with the beer? I decided to get rid of camels? Why did they not please you? No, they didn't. I'm not really a camel person, so I get the owner. Try to use them to end hostilities. Enable purpose. Did you succeed? Still working on it. Very good luck. Help with. Fuck you. Oh my god, there was a bucket there. Drop? This basket contains a snake. Yes. Use. Play. Oh my god, don't make me click all these again. Let's see what that does. Nope, doesn't do anything. Thing is, it says use on the table, not on the beer. Wait, is there somewhere I could like hide and wait for him to come back, maybe? Is that a thing? Can I hide behind the cactus again? Really behind these picklers for no reason. There is a reason! Nope, 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 nope. Anything over here to hide behind? Oh, that's a pet cat. What if I get a vial or something, maybe? Use the snake on the vial. I already used the charm. I mean, I already used the snake charm, I guess. So that's like... the item is used. Climb down the well. What the fuck? Can't see anything. Alright, let's see. Does this guy have a vial? Like, try and get snake venom or something? No. Alright, let's try the dung on it. No. Dung on that. No. What do I use the dung? Dung. 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 No. Dung. No, don't give me another bucket. Oh my god. Get snake drunk. I don't want that. Get me a beer. What if I give you grog? Will that do anything different? No, I tried putting the thingy in a... Wait, what if it lets me do it now? Really childish, I'm not going to do that. I feel like I have to blackjack one of these guys. I've already done it. Alright, let's try it again anyway. Lure. Oh, whoops. Oh, I needed a weapon. Knocked out. Pocket. No. Maybe there's something upstairs I can put the dung in? So stop. Alright, what's around? Hang on. Let me get back up. I saw a little gap over here. Can I go around there? Anything around here? Bastard. Vent. I haven't used the dung yet. There's gotta be something for the dung. Yep, same shit. Even the quest ran away from me. Identified him, but I don't know where he is. Oh my god, Dundee. Crocodile Dundee. Alright, where's Dickwad? I'm gonna try and talk to him again. Snake. Oh, he's there again. He likes this spot. Is the dude done? Examine smooth operator. Yeah, ha ha ha. Minifat thug. You just say the research thing. Let's go to the Cowardly Bandit. Mayor said no. What's it? What? Oh, never mind. He's up on a hill. Is there anything up on the hill? I didn't see that. We'll have a look up there in a minute. Where's the bandit? Cowardly bandit. I also just thought the mayor's house had a bathroom at least. Nope. Alright, let's try up here. No idea what this is. Hello. Let me guess, it wouldn't be Ali, would it? That's a rather ignorant assumption. My name is Mesa. No, you can't call me May. What do you want from me? A hex, a spot, hammer, blah, blah, blah. Actually, I just want your help to remove someone. It's simple enough. I see, but that is rarely a simple matter. Extinguishing the flame of life, but people who wish to face the consequences, and I doubt you are any different. Well, yes, I would like it to be carried out in a manner... Ooh, here we go! Well, now this is getting interesting. I'd recommend poisoning. Who do you wish dead? I need to know so that I may tailor a poison specifically. Traitor Sasham. My God, I think we've done it. Please. Please. Never have I heard a more inappropriate use of that foul word. Traitorous Hasham, you say. I believe he should be easily gotten rid of. What payment do you require? None. I will extract much pleasure from his passing. Just bring me to regret. Alright, what ingredients do you need? Impatience. Traitorous Hasham. Time is indeed nigh. Firstly, bring me some snake venom. Yep, I got a snake. Which will act as the main toxin. From a snake, perhaps? You're smart. What I meant is, how do I extract the poison? Geez, you never make a chemist. Never mind an alchemist. Just bring me a snake with teeth in its head and don't even think of giving me that snake chummer's pet worm. It's about as dangerous as a rubber knife. One step ahead of you? Oh, yeah. Well then, I'm one step ahead of you. I'm not as useless as I thought. Okay, I have the snake. Now what else do you need? Snake will do fine. A nice agonizing death for Shisham, of course. I'd never kill a fellow vindictive, nasty soul such as Snuggles, the snake here. Snuggles, that's cute. Yes, well, is there anything else I can get? Yes, now that I have the toxin, I need something to hide its trace. Fresh camel dung. Got that. Oh my God, it's all coming together. All coming together, and I just triggered the dog. Bubby. What? That's disgusting. Do you want poison or not? Okay, I'll get some. And don't forget, it has to be fresh. Now, you're going to give me the snake or not? Oops, I forgot. Oh my God, it has to be fresh. This is one of those things where I bet they... Wait, let me just try it. Good day. Oh, I missed what she said. I was just assuming. I think she said something funny. Alright, now we put the poison in, I'm guessing. Oh my God, it's all coming together. Finally. You poison the drink. I must now... Oh, okay. We don't even know that he's confirmed dead, but sure, we're just going to report that it was a success. Why not? These guys are thorough. Where are you? You. Is the deed done? Almost. His drink is poisoned. As soon as he gets back, he'll be done for. You've proven yourself to be worthy of the boss's presence. He wants to see you now and discuss the future of the gang. Okay. But where the fuck is Arlene? Where's the boss? Oh, Metafied Leader, he's outside. What the fuck? Told me that you wanted to see him. That's right. I've been keeping track of your progress. It was impressive. But what are your plans for the bandits? The bandits, a mere nuisance, insignificant in my overall plans. So, if you're not warring with the bandits, then what are you planning for? World domination. First Polvanich, then Al-Kharid. Then the whole of Gillinor. What? You do understand who we are. Actually, I thought you were a ragtag band of good-for-nothing thieves sucking life out of this backwater. It's an excuse for a town. Silence. We are the chosen, exiled from Nenethos for trying to overthrow the Pharaoh. Ow. Loyal servants of a mascot the devourer got a distraction. Oh, not that bitch. We are regrouping again to launch another offensive against the Thrall of Tumikin, using Polvanich as a spawning ground for revolution. That's it, I've had it. I'm just going to get rid of the world. Oh, just going to have to rid the world of you and your mob. I have this irrational hatred for megalomaniacs, despotic religious zealots. Prepare to meet Ichialarin or whoever. Out, Bubby, out. Pause. I'm almost done. Think. Guards protect me. Oh no, not a tough guy. Oh, don't aggro everything, please. Cool, they died instantly. Wait, I got this. Why did that not select? Cast. Why did that not cast? Why are they... I don't understand this. Yeah, whatever. The feud. Talk with the villagers to gauge their reaction. Okay. The dog is just staring at me from behind. Probably talk to the mayor. Made everything worse for us poor villagers. Well, I just single-handedly took apart one of the gangs, which was subjugating your village. You adventurers, you never think, you just act. You think that killing a powerful bad person, Gillenor, will become a better place? It's not that simple. Things never are. A vacuum is created. Power is available to the person best suited to take it. Who do you think is the best position to take that? Our good mayor or the leader of the bandits? Oops, sorry, I was just trying to help. So things are really that much worse. Yes, before your intervention, the two gangs pretty much cancelled each other out. They spent most of the time and energy killing each other. Now the balance is lost, and the bandits reign unopposed. They no longer have to deal with menophites and inflict nothing but more misery on us. You must finish the job that you have started. Oh my god. You know, this adventuring like is a lot more complicated than I thought. If you're prepared... Hey, Bobby. What you doing? You want attention, nerd? You want attention, don't you? Now hurry up and fix this mess you created. I mean, get your nose out of that shit. Do I have to spell it out for you? Would you please? Just run the bandits out of town. Instantly, I spotted their leader to the northwest a few minutes ago. Oh, that's convenient, isn't it? Are they on the hill or are they down the bottom? I see a lot of darts. Oh, bandit leader. Come here, my friends, so I may embrace you. You have done us a great turn by disposing of those menophites. Don't jump to conclusions. I didn't do it for you, so I'm also... The dog is getting impatient, so I need to hurry up. Regardless, I'm still grateful. And now I have the town at my mercy. That's what I'm here to talk to you about. Do you want a reward? A fee? I will not begrudge you that. No, I'm here to give you either you leave town of your own free will or I make you. How the worm has turned. You who was robbing, looting, and poisoning not too long ago are now taking the moral high ground. Or are you trying to keep the whole town for yourself? I'll be not run out of my own town without a fight. If you defeat my best warrior, I will leave town. Start packing your bags. Can I fucking work this one? Hello, can I cast this? Hello, can I cast it? Alright, take that. I already told you to get out. Why are you still here? Adventurer. I have underestimated you. Perhaps we can come to an agreement. How about if I work for you? Think of the riches we would make. Don't try my patience. Pack your things and get out. Yes, please. The people's champion. You are so naive. They won't even thank you for this, you know. Sure they will. I think I'll go talk to a village now just to prove you wrong. Oh no, I hate this place. I already know what's gonna happen. The village is gonna be pissed at me. Alright, what do you want, you ungrateful shit? Oh, it's you again. Delivered you from 2 evil tyrants. Let's see some gratitude. Gratitude for what? You come into our town, rob, mug, burgle, and kill, and then expect respect. And now gratitude? Look, if it's praise and thanks you're looking for, talk to the mayor. I wonder why I bother sometimes. Ungrateful layabouts. This place has been nothing but trouble, and I still haven't found Ali's nephew. My thanks. Your methods and motives may be questionable, but nonetheless, thank you for delivering this town from those wicked individuals. I think now that our problems are manageable size, mistakes made in the past will not be repeated. The least I can do for you is answer your question about the whereabouts of... Oh, thank God. It was asked to leave town as much for concerns for his health, as sad as it is to admit, and anger our townspeople. He was a good lad, but is too good a salesman. For his health, he angered a number of people by coercing them into buying things they really didn't want. He acted completely within the letter of the law, but that could only protect him for so long. Once he angered the Menophites and the bandits, I could no longer protect him and he had to go. I can assure you that he is safe and well, and now the threats to his life are no longer hold any water. He plans to open some kind of superstore with 40 of his disreputable friends, a treasure trove he claims. I'll believe it when I see it though. You'll probably remain hidden for some time. Hope that helps you for your quest. Will you give my apologies to Ali Morrisane for treating his family so? I think I may be able to put one more thing to write. I heard that your house was burgled recently. I think you should ask Rasad, the operator, about that. It may be beneficial. How do you know this? Let's just put it down to an adventurer's intuition. Oh my God, is this done? Leave this shithole. Oh my God, I hate this town. Please be the end of it. Please. I beg. I beggeth. Also, I didn't need the pick at all. He did really just sell me junk. Talk to. Hello again, my friend. I see you have not found my nephew. Have you news of his whereabouts? Indeed, I do. I was able to eventually learn of his whereabouts, although it was a little bit more challenging than I originally thought. Well, then tell me, what has become of him? Nothing bad, I hope. I was able to discover that he is quite the salesman, perhaps too good. He has roughly 40 people working under him. Unfortunately, a number of people didn't approve of his sales techniques, and as a result, he's in hiding. You make an old man very happy. I'm so proud of young Barber. Barber House? But he's thought a thief. Yes, but by people with too much money and not enough sense. All willingly parted with their money and received what they purchased. Well, I still am in need of an assistant, but take the reward anyway. 500 Did he just give me 500 coins? I have 3.7 mil and I did all that for 500 coins. I've just been thinking, Ali. There seem to be a few parallels between yourself and your nephew. Both of you are unscrupulous salesmen, both come from the same town, and both no longer trade there. Were you sent to exile too? I have my reasons. You're a dick. No. Now hang on. This seems to me like one of the strangest quests I've ever been involved with. Agreed. I do not believe that a businessman like you would not know of a competitor, particularly a competitor as talented as your nephew. So what was your motive to get me to visit Polvanich? Was it concern for the townspeople? I don't think so. I'd say you'll probably sell your grandmother if you could get a good price for her. What was the reason? My, you surprised me. You're not as dumb as you look. No, this couldn't have just been a sales pitch to get me to buy a fake beard and headpiece, was it? Oh my God. More than that. Really? Well, I did buy some other odds and ends off you. No, hang on. I get it now. You're in league with the camel seller, the kebab. Oh my God. I like the word tourism. Did you not enjoy your stay in Oh my God. Was there not action, intrigue, fun to be had? And did you not notice all the other tourists that... Oh my God. I must apologize for ever doubting you and your claims to be the best salesman in all of Gillinor. Now that we both agree on that, may I show you my wares? No, I'm really too busy. Oh my god. Oh, fuck you, Jagex. Fuck you, Ali Morrisane. I can see it all in my inventory too. I bought a beard and a hat. I bought a kebab. I bought hot sauce. I bought so many beers. I mean, I had the water skins already, but I would have had to buy them. I bought 2 camels. Oh my god, they're mocking me. Ability to do another part of the Rogue Trader. Free beer.